Welcome to the Pebble in My Shoe podcast. I'm Miffy Hoad, your host here, and each episode I'm in conversation with my guests about the pebble in their shoe that has nudged them to choose a life that aligns them closer to their truth and authentic self. The pebble in my shoe is an analogy for an inner niggle or knowing that becomes so insistent that we have to pay attention. We can ignore it only for so long and eventually have to stop to investigate it, listen to it and honour what it's telling us. It becomes a catalyst for action to change something that no longer serves us. This can be something internal, like a belief or mindset. It can be about how we behave in certain situations or relationships. Or it can be something that changes our life trajectory, like ending a relationship, changing careers, or moving to a different place. Taking the action and making the change invariably requires courage, often a leap of faith, and at the very least, to try something new and outside of our comfort zone. Whatever the action or change happens to be, the pebble ultimately moves us to live more authentically, more aligned to our true nature. My intention for the conversations here is to inspire or offer hope to those of you who resonate with the stories shared. That you'll hear something that supports you on your journey, and if there's a pebble in your shoe, that you'll find the courage to make the changes that align you closer with your authentic self. Thank you for being here. Usually at this point, I introduce my guest, but this week I'm bringing you an episode from the archives of the Heartspace Mindfulness Podcast that I recorded in 2020 during the pandemic. This is episode 4, Exploring Judgement and Agenda. I've chosen this theme for the week that's in it. The presidential elections in America have just taken place, and there's a lot of rhetoric about the result. I'm of the belief that we're actually here for this time. We are here to hold and anchor the light where we are, that engaging in the arguments over right and wrong, just and unjust, etc., only feed further into the othering and them and us mentality that divisive politics fosters. And so here is a reflection and meditation on ways we can practice heart-centered presence. I hope you enjoy it. Hello, and welcome back to the Heartspace Mindfulness Podcast. Today's episode is called Exploring Judgement and Agenda. So as you know, I draw on my own practice for these episodes. And interestingly enough, earlier this week, I was pondering what I might work on for this episode. And I was kind of inspired to go with the Judgment and Agenda theme. And lo and behold, the universe brought to me all sorts of opportunities to examine my own judgment and agenda and practice my mindfulness to try and sort of manage my own judgment and agenda. It's interesting how these things happen. So, judgment and agenda are interesting because, first of all, we need to use some element of judgment in our daily lives to make choices and decisions and be discerning. So the first thing, I suppose, is to say that judgment and agenda isn't bad. And I think that's really important, that we sort of examine it in all its facets. And agenda too, we have hopes, we have expectations, we have desires, we want things to work out a certain way. And so, we want to, I suppose, maneuver life sometimes in order to work out a certain way. And that's our agenda. And again, there's nothing wrong with it per se. It's not bad to have an agenda in that you have, a mission, so to speak. But I suppose, like everything, what we do with our judgment and agenda and how we behave in response to our judgment and agenda is, I suppose, where our mindfulness practice comes in. Because just like everything, there are consequences to our behavior. And when we sit in judgment, it can lead to us behaving a certain way. It can lead to us treating somebody a certain way, and so on. So I suppose when it comes to judgment, and what I've been experiencing myself this week is, I suppose, somebody's behavior that I suppose doesn't align with my personal values. Okay, so when we witness somebody behaving in a certain way, we can be quick to judge if it's not aligned with our values. Because we are, I suppose, that's what judgment is. It's, is this good or is this bad? Is this right or is this wrong? Is this healthy? Is it unhealthy? Is this good for you? Is it bad for you? Is this virtuous or not? Are you making an effort or are you not? Are you making an effort or are you being lazy? And all of this is judgment. And all of this boils down to a sense of, maybe, is this, you're not doing it my way. That's not how I would do that. And there can enter a sort of sense of morality into the equation. There can enter a sense of, and this is what I have experienced now and what I've witnessed in myself, in sort of sitting in judgment of somebody's behavior, is a sense of sort of superiority, actually. That, this person's behavior isn't aligned with my values, and I have witnessed in myself a sense of superiority. And I've witnessed a sense actually of arrogance in myself towards this person because of their chosen behavior. And it's an interesting thing then, because then that affects how I approach this person, that affects how I treat this person, how I speak to this person, and how I feel towards them. And I suppose then, what I've witnessed as well in that judgment, in that space of judgment, is disapproval. And I have to say, anger, just absolute anger and frustration at watching a person behave in a way that to my values is sabotaging themselves and other people around them actually too. So this is my judgment of their behavior. And then my opinion of them, And that is all well and good. But what I do with that then, what do I do with that? And how do I then sort of step back from that? How do I practice mindfulness within that? How do I practice non-judgment? And I'll come to that in a minute, because I want to explore agenda then. And I suppose agenda is about our desired outcomes and our expectations and our preferences. And so if we are, in this case now, what I'm working with this week around this judgment and agenda is, well, you're not doing it how I would do it. So rather than doing it my way, you're doing it your way. Now, nobody asked whose way this person should do anything, but when I'm in judgment, agenda and judgment are very closely related, because I'm disappointed. My disapproval of someone's behavior leads to me being disappointed because it doesn't meet with my agenda. The outcomes that I would like to see for this person, they're not, because of their chosen behavior, they won't get the outcome that I would like for them. They'll get an outcome, and it'll be their outcome because of their chosen behavior. Do you know what I mean? But it's still that sitting in judgment of the person with my agenda for what's best. And me sitting in judgment of knowing what's best. And if you did it my way, you'd have a far better outcome, is really the internal kind of dialogue that I've been having and witnessing in myself. So there's this correlation between judgment and agenda, this close related kind of response within us when we sit in judgment. And it's all linked in with our moral compass. It's all linked in with our personal value system. And it's interesting for me because what it's really flagging up for me is how easy it is to sit in judgment. How easy it is to disapprove. And how easy it is to be angry and arrogant, actually. And it's actually quite seductive, I've found. And for that, I have been, I suppose, mindful that all of that is very heady. It's very caught up in head stuff. And it's not coming from my heart space. And what I have experienced is that I actually only get relief from the judgment and agenda when I drop down into my heart space. And when I sit with the feelings in my body and drop down into my heart space. Because this isn't actually about the other person. Their behavior is none of my business. This is about me sitting in judgment of them with my agenda, thinking I know what's best for them. And all that does is upset me. All that does is raise my stress levels. It actually distresses me. I had an experience of real adrenaline in my system where I actually started to tremble. Such was my visceral response to this person's behavior. And because they weren't doing something the way I would have done it. That's how simple it is, really. When it all boils down, it doesn't matter what the story is. It doesn't matter what they did or what they didn't do. It doesn't matter what was said or what wasn't said. What matters is that my behavior is all I have control over. And I can actually only support this person if I drop down out of my head and all what I think I know is right, and drop down into my heart and open myself, use my sort of innate curiosity to explore what my response to this is, and drop down into my heart space where compassion dwells, where I can experience some compassionate acceptance of this situation, and release then the emotions that I am experiencing in response to this external event, which is, in this case, somebody else's behavior. That's the external event that I'm projecting out onto all of my disapproval and all of my anger and all of my frustration and all of my disapproval, because it's not aligned with my values. So somewhere in me then as well, what I've witnessed is that my values are right and the other person's are wrong. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like this perpetuating kind of vicious cycle of horribleness, really. And so I need to drop down into my heart. And that's what I've been practicing, is this dropping down from my head where all my thoughts are whirring about what they should and shouldn't be doing, and drop down into my heart space. Feel it in my body and drop down into that place where compassion dwells and where I can sit with this open curiosity to my own responses, and with some open curiosity and compassion to the other person as well. You know? And that has been an interesting process. Because what I also witnessed in myself was a reluctance. There was, I mentioned earlier, the seduction of this sitting in judgment and this stewing in how awful this other person's behavior is, you know. It's very seductive, it's very easy. And found myself having conversations with other people about this person's behavior. And we were collectively sitting in judgment and agenda and knowing what was right and what was wrong. And, do you know, and I think that this is a really common thing. I think that this is more common than we like to actually admit. I think this is something that we as human beings do a lot of. And then we're all righteous because we're all on the one side and we all are aligned with the same thing. And we're all saying, yeah, right on. We're all in the one camp against this other person's behavior or this other camp's behavior or whatever it might be, whether it is in a one-to-one relationship, whether it's in a family situation, whether it's somebody in the community, whether it's a more global, you know, sort of, or on social media, or it's, you know. But this judgment and agenda takes us into this place of disapproval and righteousness. And it's a really uncomfortable place to be. It's not pleasant. But like I said, it is seductive. It's easy to go there. And I have to say, what I found then was that I was disapproving of myself for behaving that way. Well, I'm not sure that I behaved in any way. I managed to sort of curb that, I think, but I certainly, the feelings I had, what I wanted, the way I wanted to behave, you know, I wasn't impressed with myself for that. I wasn't impressed with the thoughts I was having. I wasn't impressed with the feelings I was having. I wasn't impressed with my frustration and arrogance. You know, so I wasn't only judging this other person. Then I started, you know, turning the judgment and agenda on myself. Asking myself, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you behaving like this for? Come on, you know better than this. And being really harsh with myself, you know. So my practice then, in response to that, when I witnessed myself giving myself the hard time then, at least I was giving the other person a break, but, you know, it's about going, okay, hang on a wee minute here. What do you want? You know, I had to ask myself, what do I want? I want to feel peaceful. I want to feel centered. And all of this judgment and agenda that I've been engaging with has been taking me out of my center. And it has been taking me right out of my heart space. So I want to drop back down into my heart space. And I was witnessing reluctance to do that. I was witnessing myself unwilling to drop into my heart space, wanting to hold on to that righteousness. You know? So I'm still working on that. I'm still working on dropping down into my heart space. And the practice that I'm using at the moment is the hand on heart. So I have that physical contact. And what I'm doing is I'm putting my predominant hand on my heart and then my other hand over it. So I'm reinforcing that this is what I need to be doing. Connecting at the heart. And in this particular situation, there isn't really a lot I can do for this other person. This other person, you know, there isn't really much I can do or say in this particular situation that's going to really be any way helpful. So what I'm doing then is returning myself to center. Because all I'm doing is frying my head by engaging in judgment and agenda. So I'm dropping down into my heart space. I'm using the hand on heart, reinforcing it with my other hand, and breathing into my heart space and connecting with that center where I know compassion dwells. And keep returning to that. Even though the seduction of the judgment is there, every time I witness myself being seduced by it, I return back to my heart. And when I think of the person in this particular situation, I choose to smile. A genuine smile. A warm, loving smile. And drop back down into my heart and mind my business. Mind the business of my heart and what I'm responsible for. So that's the practice. And so the practice that I'm going to now guide you on is going to bring us down into the heart space. It's going to start with the head and we'll drop down from the head and work on that. That's the practice. And return to our center in non-judgment, without agenda. And just witness and observe with as much compassion and open curiosity as we can be willing to experience right now. So we're going to start the practice with the bell, and we'll finish with the bell, and I'll guide you through this practice. We're going to be using the hand on heart. We're going to be using some breath work, and we're going to be sitting as observers, witnessing ourselves, and witnessing ourselves with compassion and with curiosity. Okay, so we'll start now with the bell. So I'm inviting you to bring your awareness inwards, closing your eyes if you wish. Taking a deep and full breath. Exhaling completely. And allowing your breaths, for a few breaths anyway, to be deep and full. As you breathe yourself into the space that you occupy. Breathing yourself inwards from all the external distractions. Feeling the connection that you're making with the seat and the floor. Breathing your awareness into your feet. And allow each breath to bring you more into yourself, coming home to yourself with your breath. And allowing each breath to soften slightly, become less intense, but still using your breath to breathe your awareness into your legs, into your bottom and your hips, into your lower back, your shoulders, your shoulder blades, your mid-back. Breathing your awareness into your belly, your torso, down the length of both arms, into your hands, your fingers and your thumbs. Breathing your awareness into your neck, into the back of your skull, across your scalp, down your forehead and into your face. And following your breath, down through the front of your neck and into your chest. And now bringing your predominant hand to your heart. And bring your other hand to sit on top of your predominant hand. Reinforcing the connection with your heart and breathing through your heart center. Connecting warmly with your heart. And just taking a moment to reflect on something in your life that you have been experiencing judgment and agenda around. Whether it's in a relationship or something broader in your community, on social media, whatever it is, just take a moment to bring it to mind. A situation in which you're experiencing judgment and agenda. And take a moment to bring all the parts of the issue to your awareness. Who or what is the judgment and agenda directed at? And what is it about it that you feel this judgment? What is it for you? And what emotion does it bring up in you? And what's your agenda in this situation? What are your preferred outcomes or expectations? How does it disappoint you? Still breathing through your heart space, but being mindful of all of the situation and witnessing your emotions about it, your thoughts about it. Is it to do with your value system? And what are your values around this situation? And is it about your opinion? And imagine that whole situation up in your mind and all of the struggle that you have through this judgment and agenda. And then breathe down into your heart space again, dropping down physically into your heart. feeling your breath in your heart space. And breathing into the compassion that exists there in your heart. The compassion of non-judgment. Of acceptance and tolerance. Forgiveness. And even if you can't forgive, maybe you can still be compassionate. And feeling that compassion for yourself. How do you feel about yourself in this situation? And how would it be to be non-judgmental and have no agenda around this situation? How would it feel to actually just let it go? Let it be. How would it be to release the judgment and just sit in the peace and the tranquility in your heart space? To have no agenda other than to just be. And with your curiosity, witnessing any invitations to be seduced back to the judgment, and choosing instead to drop deeper into the peace of non-judgment, into the tranquility of your heart space where you can just be. Breathing into your being. And always returning to your heart space. Witnessing the invitations of the thoughts and returning to the peace and tranquility of your heart. Choosing to just be. Choosing ease over struggle. right in this moment. You don't have to do anything about any situation in your life. Right in this moment, you can choose to let it all go. Let it all be. Release all the judgment. Have no agenda. And settle even more deeply into your heart space. Aligning yourself with peace, with ease, with loving compassion for yourself, for others, for the situation, what do you want to align yourself with? And settle into that. Breathing into that. What is it you're aligning yourself with? Breathing into it and feeling it settle into your entire being. Still aware of your hands on your heart. And the sensations that that creates. And before releasing your hands, taking a moment to reflect on the practice. Reflecting on any insights that may have arisen, shining light on various aspects of your practice. And just taking a moment to reflect on what it is you're bringing with you from this practice to serve you as you go through your day. And with your next breath, release your hands gently back down to your lap. Attending to the connection that your body is making with the seat and the floor. Allowing your next breath to deepen slightly as you prepare to come to the end of the practice. And when you hear the bell again, the practice will be over. So as you gently emerge from the practice, I hope that you found it beneficial and, if nothing else, relaxing. As you know, I record these sessions live and in one take. And I apologise if you could hear a dog barking in the background or wind blowing. It's particularly stormy here this evening, and my neighbour's dog was having a little yap to himself. So I hope that didn't come through, and if it did, I hope it wasn't an interference to the practice for you. So I will take this opportunity to once again thank you for being a patron to the podcast. I hope that you are finding your investment in the podcast worthwhile. I'm enjoying doing the episodes, finding it really useful for my own practice, and it's helping to hold me more accountable, I think, for my practice, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to embark on this. So we have 4 episodes done now. That's a month of podcasts, and so yeah, it's an interesting journey for me, and I hope that it is for you too, and I'm really pleased to have you along with me for the journey. So that's where we'll leave it for today. So, bye for now. Thank you for listening to The Pebble in My Shoe. If you've enjoyed listening, I ask that you like, share and subscribe, please. It helps let other people know that it's available. As well as hosting this podcast, I'm a personal growth coach at the Daisy Coaching Hub, where I provide one-to-one coaching for personal and spiritual growth, mental health and well-being, group mindfulness classes and events, and a range of original self-directed resources to support, nurture and energize you. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn at the Daisy Coaching Hub, or visit www.daisycoaching.ie. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.